We're live.
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Hayes, and I am the owner and principal at Fusion Success Group. Today's session at San Antonio Startup Week is focused on San Antonio's healthcare and bioscience ecosystem, which has experienced impressive growth over the last decade, reporting an economic impact of more than $40 billion in 2018 and employing more than 1 in 6 working adults. Our city is fortunate to be the home to world-renowned research and educational institutions, committed public sector entities, entrepreneurial support organizations, medical and biotech companies, and one of the US military's largest medical commands and life science initiatives. These deep assets, in addition to the collaborative and welcoming spirit of the Alamo City, have attracted many biomedical and life science professionals and innovators to want to live here and do business here. So today, we will be learning about some of these key local institutions that are helping accelerate the progress of healthcare and biosciences, and then learn about how you can build your own connections as you are navigating your way through our local community. So in our time today, we'll meet the leaders of some of these organizations, discover the impact they are making in the local ecosystem, and learn about plans for the future as we head into 2021 and beyond. So today, I am joined by the following panelists, movers and shakers here in San Antonio: Heather Hanson, President of Biomed SA; Rene Dominguez, President and COO of Texas Research and Technology Foundation, also over the subsidiary Velocity Texas; Dr. Cory Levenson, San Antonio Military Medical Innovation Director at San Antonio Economic Development Corporation; and Dr. Cory Hallam, the Vice President of Business Development and Strategic Alliances, as well as Professor of Innovation Management at the Texas Biomedical Research Institute. So we have an amazing panel, great leaders here in San Antonio. So the format of today's session, just to give you an idea of what to expect, we're going to take a few moments to allow each speaker to elaborate on their background and the organizations that they represent. I'll kick off the conversation asking some key questions that draw out high-level themes. And then in our remaining time, we'll open up the floor to give a chance for the audience to ask some questions that you've been thinking about related to our speakers. All right, well, I hope everyone is ready. So I'd like to start with you, Heather. Heather, I understand that you have been in your role as president of Biomed SA relatively recently this year. And so I'd like to learn more about, how you came to where you are now and what your plans are in your new role at Biomed SA.
Sure. So my background is mechanical engineering. That's what my degrees are in. I have worked for several different companies, as well as started my own consulting company in medical device development. And that is where I focused most of my careers in medical device. And it's that background in industry that made me interested in the position at Biomed SA, which I've had for about 6 months.
Thank you. So next, I'll move to Rene Dominguez. Rene, thank you for joining us today. And I understand that, Rene, you have a strong background in economic development, having worked at the city. So can you share with us how long have you been at Texas Research Technology Foundation, and share more with us about what your role is there?
Sure, and thanks for having me. I did work at the city. I was the city's economic development director for over a decade. And then a real unique opportunity popped up with one of our partners, and that is the Texas Research and Technology Foundation. This organization is real unique in that its primary mission is economic development, but we also are a real estate developer. We're also a community developer, and we also have a pre-seed fund. So we have a lot going on. It's a nonprofit organization that was created over 30 years ago And its primary purpose was to establish a research park over on the far west side of San Antonio. It was a classic model that included having kind of an anchor institution involved. We had UT Health as a partner on over 1,500 acres out on the far west side off of 90 and 211. So pretty far out there. We established labs out there and offices in 3 different buildings and started to create some momentum. But things shifted and times have changed. And there was a global discussion, a local discussion, a national discussion really about inclusive economic development, a discussion around proximity and density, urban redevelopment. And so the board really wanted to pivot and shift and find a way to be more impactful. And so we changed our business model just recently and purchased a city block right in front of the Alamo Dome on the Near East Side, the old Merchant Ice cold storage facility, a historic facility that had around 5 different buildings. And we're redeveloping out this innovation center and a broader innovation district in the area to really help build out the ecosystem, to help focus on the biosciences, to help focus on startups and entrepreneurialism. We're in our 3rd year of redevelopment of this site and just finished phase 1. So it's an exciting project, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Thank you, Rene. And we're all really eager to learn more about the programs that you have underway at Velocity and TRTF. Why don't we do a quick intro? Dr. Cory Levenson, can you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate the invitation to participate in this exciting panel. My name is Cory Levenson. My background's originally in pharmaceutical chemistry. I moved to San Antonio actually in 1996 to work for Ilex Oncology, which at that time was at the research park on 211, way out on the west side of town. And I was with Ilex until they got acquired by Genzyme, and then worked for another cancer drug development company in town here, then worked as chief scientific officer for a company developing drugs for treatment of skin conditions, and then worked for about a year for BioBridge Global GenCure. And I've been in my current position, which, as you mentioned, is San Antonio Military Medical Innovation Director since October of 2019.
Thank you. Thank you, Cory. And then Dr. Cory Hallam, can you share with us what your new role is at Texas Biomedical Research Institute?
Sure. So I joined Texas Biomed earlier this year to really focus on the growth strategies and where we align with working with industry and commercial partners. The Institute itself has a phenomenal 80-year track record of working in infectious disease. And as I get to talk a little bit about later, the intellectual assets, the laboratory assets, the research assets we bring to the table are critical both for early stage companies as well as many of the Operation Warp Speed COVID-19 companies we've been working with this past year. So I'll get to talk about that a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cory, and really, really great to see you again. We've been all playing in this virtual world, so it's great to see everyone's faces here on Zoom. I'd like to move the discussion back to Heather Hanson at Biomed. So Heather, for those that aren't familiar, can you share with us the mission of Biomed and more about the vision of the organization? Oh, and Heather, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'll say it again. Sure. Biomed was founded in 2005 as a nonprofit dedicated to the growth of the healthcare and bioscience industry in San Antonio. As part of the effort to support the life science industry, we offer resources to our members as well as the community. So we host informational events to educate and facilitate connections, such as how to do specific activities in medical device development, therapeutics, how to work with the military, that sort of thing. A lot of this information is on our website, so I'd encourage you to check it out. We post links to relevant local, state, and federal grant opportunities, as well as nonprofit grants on our website to help people secure funding. Our member companies also receive a lot of volume discount pricing contracts as part of a nationwide program for life science companies. And our members can also be involved in our advocacy program. We actively work on improving the industry through working groups dedicated to specific issues. We currently have a group working to position San Antonio as the premier location in the country to conduct clinical trials. And this is a collaborative citywide effort. And soon we will be starting our funding working group to elevate the number and size of investments coming to San Antonio's life science startup community. We will be hosting our first potential investor connection event in April 2021 with opportunities for companies to present their pitch decks and meet potential investors. We also work on the growth of the life science workforce in San Antonio. One program that may be of interest to startup companies is the city's subsidized on-the-job training program. Any San Antonio company with less than 500 employees that has been around for a year or more can participate. The company agrees to train someone for an open and permanent position, and the city pays for that person's wages during the training period for up to 12 weeks. So you can contact me later or through the Biomed SA website if your company is interested in this program. As the hub of the life science industry in San Antonio, Biomed SA connects people to the resources that they need to be successful. For example, we have a website page dedicated to working with the military. On our events page, we list all the life science events, including this one, in San Antonio in one easy location so you can hopefully find what you're looking for. We have an index list of healthcare and bioscience companies based on their disease areas and what they do. And we also have links to more detailed research and the upcoming asset database that Velocity Texas is putting together. In 2021, we will be hosting targeted networking events to bring together researchers, physicians, engineers, and business people to talk about their work in specific disease areas and hopefully facilitate some collaboration through those events. There are a lot of research support organizations that are available in San Antonio for life science startups. R&D and performance testing can be done at Southwest Research Institute, UTSA, UT Health, Envision, and by the military. Preclinical testing is readily available at Texas Biomed, which Dr. Cory Hallam will be talking about in a moment, Bridge PTS, and Crown Scientific. All aspects of clinical studies can be done in San Antonio, from the CRO running the study to the clinic interacting with the patient. And there are many clinical care sites that routinely do clinical trials. San Antonio's friendly atmosphere extends to the life science industry, where collaborations are very strong. While many institutions are large, they do work with startups, and Biomed SA helps to facilitate those introductions. Medical devices, biologics, pharmaceuticals, they can all be manufactured here in San Antonio at small prototype volumes to production. There's also a lot of co-working space available and rentable lab space available in San Antonio that we can help connect startup companies to, including independent space, as well as space associated with incubators and accelerators. San Antonio has 3 incubator accelerators dedicated to the support of bioscience startups. Watershed Idea Foundry focuses on medical devices, Crown Scientific focuses on therapeutics, and Velocity Texas has an accelerator for general bioscience. So we have a lot going on here.
Yeah. It sounds like it. And I love the new Biomed SA website. It's very user-friendly and it has so much incredible information and resources. So thank you, Heather, for providing that overview. So Heather, can you share with us, looking at, I know this has been a really busy year for everybody, as well as a year that has kind of turned some of our plans upside down and caused, shifts in the way that we think about the future. Can you share with us to that end, what are some of the plans for Biomed SA looking into 2021? What type of programming do you have planned to really help, help increase impact through collaboration and advocacy of the healthcare community?
Yeah, I mentioned the funding event. That will be a pre-Fiesta event designed to bring together startup companies who are looking for contacts with potential investors and to facilitate those introductions. I think the targeted disease area networking sessions will be important for building collaborations and connecting engineers who are developing products with business people who might want to license those products, as well as the clinical care and research side, and bringing them all together to move forward at a faster rate. We'll also be doing programming on medical device development and pharmaceutical development next year. And we are putting together another program that will be a targeted training program for manufacturers, primarily component manufacturers who are not making anything in the medical device industry yet, but would like to, and we'll get them a heads up on what they need to do differently for medical device manufacturing. And that would also be a good opportunity for those who may not be familiar with the manufacturing side of medical devices, but you have a device that you're working on, to get up to speed about what's important when selecting a medical device manufacturer and what kind of documentation is required.
Thank you, Heather. And for those that don't know Heather, she's a fellow mechanical engineer, industry veteran in the medical device industry. Extremely impressive background. So Heather, I know that all of the programming that you're planning for next year will benefit from your extensive experience in the industry. So thank you so much. At this point, I'd like to move to Rene Dominguez. So Rene, you and I have talked on and off about some of the areas within the local bioscience community that Velocity and Texas Research Technology Foundation is looking to address, as far as helping accelerate progress of startups, as well as addressing some of the infrastructure gaps. Can you kind of speak to that and share with us, Rene, some of the programs that you have in store for next year?
Sure. First of all, I'm just delighted to be with everyone on this panel. I used to work with most everyone in my former job. And, you know, what I love about the biosciences and healthcare is kind of the collaborative spirit that we have, and then the potential in terms of our targeted industries, which I used to work in all of them. I really felt as though healthcare and biosciences really provide the biggest opportunity for economic growth in San Antonio. And that's because of all the assets that Heather mentioned and the other things you're going to hear about from the panelists. So as a community, I really feel as though we need to double down on the biosciences. It's the opportunity is there for us to really propel the city forward in a lot of different ways, especially when you think of it in terms of higher paying jobs. At our root, we're an economic development organization, so job creation and company formation is kind of how we measure our success at the foundation. And so I think that's something to kind of highlight is, you know, most net new jobs in the country are created by new company formation. The data supports that. So to double down on entrepreneurial development in particular is a way to really boost San Antonio's stature and move us to kind of tier 1 status. As a foundation, we have some guiding principles, and that is that we strongly support commercialization. We're also unique in that we really believe in terms of strategy, leveraging our military assets here, military research assets is critical. And then really focusing on entrepreneurial development is also a key part of our strategy. I think all of that is really dependent on how the community supports entrepreneurial development and how we get behind that. We've seen some tremendous progress in terms of UT Health and UTSA, in terms of our other partners like SWIRI and Texas Biomed that you'll hear from. So getting behind those efforts is what we wanted to do as a foundation, and start really identifying the key assets and the key programs necessary to build out that ecosystem. So that's what we've been trying to establish. That's why we established Velocity Texas. A lot of people have heard about that. That's our programming arm. That's our innovation arm. It's a nonprofit subsidiary that really puts together all these programs. And so we built a strategy around 3 key aspects. That's connecting and collaborating, something we do well here in San Antonio. But I think everyone, if we're honest about it, would suggest that, you know, even though we have these assets here in San Antonio that rival other key metros around the country, we really haven't leveraged them to the fullest extent that we could. So connecting and collaborating at a higher level is something that we want to encourage. As Heather mentioned, we're developing an online database of all the assets. We currently have around 300 entities in the database, but it's really a way to encourage partnerships and working together and collaborating. A perfect example is the initiative Precision Therapeutics that the big 4 institutions are working on together. You know, how do we get them to partner and secure more funding and develop out more research? And a byproduct of that could be more startups. So that's one of the initiatives. It's called BioConnect Texas. We're going to roll it out in the next 30 days. And it's going to be a free online database where you can kind of query the system and find out who these individuals are and entities are. The second primary goal is supporting and developing, you know, really creating and helping form companies. And under that vertical, we have some really key programs that, you know, you see all over the country. And I think it's only fair that here in San Antonio, we put resources behind establishing some world-class programming like an accelerator. We just launched an accelerator that's going to start in February. We launched applications, but it's basically a 16-week long program that provides the technical assistance needed for startups to be successful. And we're in the process of picking those companies. And as I said, that's going to start in February. A side note for that, there is a $25,000 prize for companies that go through that program at the end of it all. And so we're trying to also provide that carrot to encourage companies from all over, not only the United States, but we're also sourcing companies from South America to come and bring their technologies to San Antonio and hopefully locate here. We also have an incubator, and we have a growth program that works with executives of already established companies. Lastly, something that we hear about all the time, and I think all entrepreneurs and startups can relate to, and that is the need to have funding, access to all forms of capital. The foundation itself formed a McDermott Fund, that's what it's called. It's a pre-seed fund. It's fully deployed, but we've committed to reestablishing that and redeploying it again in 2021. And so that's for early stage companies and seed capital. We're doing a lot of other initiatives within that vertical, but that's just one of the ones that we are developing out for 2021. This is all done in the context of kind of open innovation and the power of collisions. And so for us, placemaking is very important. We're developing out this 5-acre site in the heart of the east side, right outside of downtown, to be one of those areas where you can go get all your support services, all the facilities. You can access offices, capital, technical assistance in kind of one place. You can interact with academia, with the private sector. And so it's really a new model. I think back in the days, more secluded models and were common, but now it's all about open innovation and collisions and collaborating. And so we're committed to that. We've put a substantial amount of financial resources behind all these programs. And so our goal is to establish, you know, what San Antonio really deserves, and that's world-class facilities and world-class programming and a really thriving ecosystem that supports our startups.
Thank you, Rene. And I understand that the Velocity Texas Innovation Center, they are very open to hosting tours for anyone that would like to learn more about how it works and usage of their facilities. But Rene, to that end, can you share with us, are there any plans in the future for expansion or renovation of the surrounding buildings?
Yeah, so the complex itself has 5 historic buildings on it. You may have seen it. It's right adjacent and across the street from the Spaghetti Warehouse. It's 2 blocks north of the Alamo Dome. It's a historic site, industrial complex made up of 5 buildings. When it's all complete, we would have pumped in around $250 million of private investment into the space and created around 100,000 square feet of office and lab space. We just finished phase 1, which is around 40,000 square feet. And next week we start phase 2, another 20,000 square feet of space. And, you know, we're committed to phase 3 and 4, which completes our complex. This is a part of a broader idea, and that's an innovation district, trying to encourage companies to locate around us, trying to encourage academia to locate around us. And I guess the most important anchor tenant we feel that could be a game changer is military research. Trying to get military research to work together outside of the fence line so that they can collide with our private sector, collide with academia, and really help us meet their mission, but also commercialize technologies that would have a home in the private market. So there's a lot going on. I appreciate you mentioning we are doing tours. We've put into place pretty strict COVID protocols, but you can come visit. We're gonna take your temperature and we're gonna have you wear a mask. And we've created kind of one-way walkways, but we are open and we would love to have people come visit. The facility's open 24 hours, but we're here and giving tours 8 to 5. It's right across the street from Tucker, so feel free to stop by.
Thank you, Rene. And thanks also for touching upon the military medicine segue. So I wanted to kind of bring up, so there was a industry action plan for the healthcare and bioscience community published by Biomed SA with the help of Frost & Sullivan, and it was backed by the city of San Antonio as well as Texas Research Technology Foundation. And in that, there were several recommendations that were published. One of those was to foster more collaborative efforts between San Antonio researchers and military medicine across several disease areas. So with that, I wanted to have Cory Levenson share with us his new role. He's been in a new role for a little over a year. So Cory, can you tell us, share with us these acronyms of what is the SAEDC and SAMI, and just introduce us to what you've been doing for the last year and what your plans are going forward in your new role.
Sure. Rene set me up perfectly, segueing into what I'm really spending my time doing, because my goals are really closely aligned with those of Velocity Texas with respect to leveraging local assets, creation of jobs, fostering entrepreneurial activities, creation of companies, and so forth. So the city of San Antonio, the San Antonio Economic Development Corporation, which is the entity that I work for, is it's a 501c3 not-for-profit. I'm actually the sole employee of that corporation, and it was created about a decade ago with the specific intent of enabling the city, which is a municipal entity, to make investments in local companies. So the city has the SAEDD, which is the Economic Development Department, which Rene oversaw for many years. And it also has the SAEDF, which is another not-for-profit that Janice Lacido Herrera oversees. And that's a foundation that's really focused on, again, economic growth within the city, identifying companies that might be interested in making San Antonio their home, bringing in people like Navistar and Toyota and so on and so forth. Jenna just went back to the Pentagon with the mayor and General Ayala to talk about trying to get the Defense Health Agency to establish a bigger footprint here in San Antonio and have Space Command here. So those three organizations, the EDD, the EDC, and the EDF, all work together with partners like Velocity Texas. And the long-term goal really is to grow the life science ecosystem and economy here in San Antonio. So create companies, create high-paying jobs, continue to grow that sector, which is already playing such a large part in the local economy. So the city sponsored a study to look at how they could leverage this unique asset, which is the presence of military medical research and treatment here in San Antonio. I mean, San Antonio is in the top 10 American cities in terms of population. That's either right ahead or right behind San Diego. But one thing that really sets San Antonio apart that other cities don't have is this concentration of military medical expertise. All of our medics are trained here. We have the Brooks Army Medical Center here. We have the 59th Medical Wing of the Air Force here. We have the Naval Medical Research Unit here, the Army's Institute of Surgical Research. So there's just a whole lot of interesting things going on here, and a lot of interesting research, which is leading to patent filings. But the problem is the military has no infrastructure or capability to actually bring products to market. So if they come up with a great idea that leads to a great way to help treat patients or wounded warfighters, they have to rely on the private sector to license that technology, raise money, do the work to produce the product, get the regulatory approval, and bring it to the market. So those of you familiar with David Spencer and Pride Time, he's sort of the poster child for what we've been trying to do. He went and licensed technology from the Air Force. He created a product, he got it approved by the FDA, and now he's getting it on the market. So we'd like to do more of that. And so there are a number of aspects to that. I mean, one is trying to identify companies that are already in San Antonio, working in that area, and provide support and encouragement for them in terms of helping to establish collaborations and also financial support. Another aspect is trying to identify companies that may be in other parts of the country that would be interested in having closer connections with the military medical community here and convincing them to, if not relocate here, at least have a presence here. And finally, you can talk about initiating companies, starting companies here. So identifying what the needs are of the military medical community, finding technology available for licensing, finding funding through DoD grants or wherever, or through Velocity or who knows, and then identifying a leadership team that could actually start a company, take that technology and turn it into a product. And so we're thinking about and working on all aspects of that right now. And at the same time, trying to make the local community aware of what the funding opportunities are from the DoD. And again, working with Velocity to identify the capabilities within town so that people who are interested in collaborating know where to go and what to do. And going back to that idea of trying to find local companies that are working in areas of interest to the military medical community, we, at the end of last year in December, the EDC Board of Directors approved a fund to provide up to $50,000 in investment to companies that are working to develop products that would benefit the local military medical community. So we had our first round of applications last April. We identified 3 companies that we thought would be worthy of investment. The board approved investment in those 3 companies, and so we're moving forward. Those companies were Renovo Concepts, which is working on a treatment for traumatic brain injury, Gate IQ, which is working on using artificial intelligence to do motion analysis to identify recruits that are in basic training that are doing things in such a way that may lead to injuries or accidents that will take them out of commission for a while and preventing those injuries. And then finally, Emergence Med, which is a company started by 2 faculty members at UT Health and UTSA, where they're, one of the principals is an ex-Army emergency medicine doc who in the field saw the need for a lightweight, portable, effective way to identify and maintain airways in injured soldiers. So they're working on making something that would be small enough that could be carried by a medic. So those 3 companies received the first rounds of investment. And I want to make sure everybody who's listening today is aware that we're, during the month of October, accepting the second round of statements of interest. So I put on the chat there a couple of links there to both the a description of the Military Life Science Commercialization Initiative, as well as a link to the SAMI fund, is what it's called, San Antonio Military Medical Innovation, or SAMMI fund. So if they're interested in applying for this funding, you can go to that website. The initial statement of interest is just a single page, 4,000 characters. It's not like preparing a grant application. So if you think you're working in an area that might be appropriate for this kind of investment, please go read the information there and try and get your statement of interest in before the end of the month. And Yeah, so it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to working. I work with Heather at Biomed SA. There's information on her website about military medical stuff. I'm working with Rene and the other Cory. So as others have noted, one of the other unique aspects about San Antonio is how collaborative this community is. And I think that's something that really gives us a leg up.
Thank you so much, Cory. And yeah, it is a small world. All of you happen to also be participating in the BioGlobal Accelerator program next year as speakers or panelists, so thank you. And with that, I actually just entered the link to that program in the chat if anyone wants to learn more about it. I see we have several attendees in the audience. These are amazing resources in addition to the programs and resources that Heather Hanson at Biomed SA has offered to the city of San Antonio. These are great things to take advantage of and share with your networks, especially the funding opportunities. So with that, I'd like to move over to Cory Hallam. Cory, thank you for joining us today. And we have another person that's kind of in a new role. So Cory, I know as of 2020, you've joined Texas Biomedical Research Institute, and you have a very impressive background in terms of creating technology commercialization ecosystems. And I know that's part of your role. So Cory, can you share with us more about what you're doing now at Texas Biomed and kind of how your new department in your new role contributes to the Texas Biomed's 10-year plan?
Sure. So thank you for that. And Texas Biomed has a great 80-year history of working in infectious disease. A lot of phenomenal people have come through the Institute, have worked with the Institute, and we essentially operate in two modes. There's the internal research mode that faculty participate in. We're highly NIH funded. We're developing new inventions. We're doing basic research, and we have a portfolio of really cool science that we're moving forward. At the other extreme, we work with industry partners where we're helping them move their innovations forward, whether it's new molecular entity, whether it's an antibody, by the resources we have on campus. And essentially the role I've joined them on is how do we expand that activity in twofold, bringing more companies to town that want access to these resources and hopefully have some form of relocation to San Antonio. And the second is spinning off more of the technologies we have from our labs, because there's a lot of great work being done that I'd love to see in the hands of companies. So if you look from a unique asset perspective, we're a 200-acre campus. We're not affiliated with any one university. We're private 501c3. And we have the home to the Southwest National Primate Center. There's over 3,000 primates on campus, where that aligns with some of our core facilities, where we have over 13,000 square feet of BSL-3 facility and the only private BSL-4 in the country. So essentially for high containment work, where you're working with pathogens that are highly dangerous, you cannot test on humans, or for select agent work we're doing for the DoD. And so there's some very unique assets that combine with some great work we're doing in TB, in HIV work, in Zika. And if you go look at the history, 2 of the Ebola vaccines that are approved on the market came out of work that were done here in our labs, which is wonderful. You got Regeneron and you got Janssen just announced in Europe, they're doing that. If you look at the most recent 3 Nobel laureates who got the Nobel laureate for medicine for discovering Hep C, Dr. Lanford here had worked with all 3 of them to do animal studies here in San Antonio to help move that work forward. We only wish Dr. Lanford had also gotten that Nobel Prize. But one of them had an adjunct appointment at Texas Biomed, which is wonderful. And the fact that we're a 501c3 and not affiliated with any large organization, we can move quickly. And so the tie-in we have with the community, we raised some money at the start of this year to try and respond to the COVID-19 crisis, and very quickly raised over $3 million in about a week from the community to help us launch a multi-species study to figure out what is the best model for doing these challenges to verify if things work in terms of therapies or vaccines. And the ones we can talk about are now published. So we did the Regeneron cocktail very quickly to get that one tested as a therapy. We've done the Pfizer vaccine. We did their challenge studies very quickly. Both of those pubs are in preprint right now. And we have a few other Operation Warp Speed companies. So at the high level, this fact that we can quickly put a model together, put the team together, propagate the virus, genetically sequence it to verify you're not getting any deletions or mutations, basically all the way from designing the experiment through to doing the pathology and everything else that's necessary to validate its effectiveness. So that's at the big company level. At the small company level, I think we've signed 25 different companies since March of this year doing work on our campus. Everything from local companies like Xenex wanting to know, hey, will our germ zapping robot help kill the virus on surfaces? So we designed that experiment, set it up in the biosafety level lab, and probably from experiment, setup, approval, launch, and data analysis was about 4 weeks turnaround, which is great, right? Getting that data in a quality way that is repeatable, can be published, and is usable for companies to go forward. We're working with Heat Biologics, which is a locally associated company, on one of their compounds, and an assortment of others doing everything from the in vivo, small animal, large animal, as well as in vitro work on campus. And so the way we're structured right now is, small companies that need that skill coming in, we can help answer their question. And I have to tell you, it's not always a nice answer, right? We've actually run some in vitro work for folks to test their small molecules against COVID. And the answer was no effectivity, right? Or even more cytotoxic and less effective than remdesivir. And so you would rather know that up front quickly for under $100,000 than go and get into a very expensive development plan. On the other hand, we've had companies come through, quickly go through, see that there is some effectiveness, and co-wrote an SBIR with us, got it awarded in a matter of 6 weeks, and we're going to now do their small animal study for them to move them along. And so we have this ability to support that and be part of the team where essentially these very expensive assets, these very expensive individuals don't have to be hired in full-time to your company. We can essentially tackle your problems for you. And by the way, we're also publishing on these. So what a great thing for a company who'd like to have that third-party attestation out there. And I see Heather nodding her head. Whether you're a device looking for your CMS cost code or you're looking to get something through approval, you're going to need those studies out there that can be validated and fit into your portfolio. And so combine that with the fact that, hey, guess what? 2 weeks ago, we licensed with University of Alabama a neutralizing antibody for SARS-CoV-2 to a company out of California, right? That's a great thing that's coming out of the labs. So if we can combine the services to the companies plus potentially things we have developed that could help or aid their products be better, I think that's a win-win for us.
Thank you, Cory. So, with your new role at Texas Biomed, what are some of those new mechanisms that you're helping to put in place, based on your prior work with technology and commercialization? What are some of those things that you're doing at Texas Biomed, and the experience you're offering to help the organization, get those cures for infectious diseases more quickly to the people that need them?
Well, it's doing great quality science fast, right? And that's really what it is. And having been in university environments for years, which you and I interacted in grad school, being on the other side where we can just focus on getting that science done quickly really helps accelerate the process. And having folks, we've got faculty who are on the World Health Organization committee for COVID studies, on the FDA's active committee for COVID studies. We got folks on BARDA committees for, hemorrhagic fever type viruses. And so we've got a lot of folks working on these committees where those companies that want to move something forward, first of all, we can give them insight on sort of what the latest and greatest is in that space, and also have this ability to potentially make some introductions as we go forward. So if you look at our 200-acre campus, ultimately, I want to get to a point where in our plan of building new buildings, we want these companies nationally and internationally to have the ability to come to our campus, co-locate during times of development, and ultimately even have corporate sabbaticals where they're sending folks to San Antonio to keep pushing what might be the next great therapy or vaccine.
That's exciting. Thank you for that. And I did read about the expansion plans as well. Can you share with us more information about the plans to expand the campus?
Sure. We've been running at full tilt. We just got a very large grant to build the next generation primate facility for about 800 more primates to expand on our campus. And that was supported by the local reps for the EDA who helped us get a CARES Act grant, which is wonderful, along with philanthropic support from the community to match against that. And after that, the next two large buildings, we're actually expanding our BSL-4 capability. We're going to quadruple the size of it and add about 100,000 more square feet of new scientific and research space as we recruit. Essentially, you'll see over the next 8 years, we're going to double in size. So not only are we recruiting scientific staff and support staff, even my group, you'll see we're going to be posting some job listings soon as we expand our activity to grow this in San Antonio.
Thank you. So in our time remaining, I wanted to kind of draw upon the other theme of our talk today, which is really building connections. And all of us were connected prior to the pandemic, and hopefully the attendees in the audience can connect with you after this session. But with that theme, and feel free to answer if you have some thoughts on this. My question is, how have each of you continued to build and maintain connections throughout the pandemic? And for others that are looking to do the same, whether they're people in the current community or people looking at San Antonio to maybe do business, like how would you encourage them to build connections within the community?
I'll speak to that. I think it's important to not become secluded, even though you may be working at home, so you don't have to talk to anybody at the break room or the cafeteria or whatever. It is important to keep those connections going. So one of the things we've been doing through Biomed SA is setting up Zoom calls or meetings, I guess I should say, with companies and organizations here in San Antonio to see what their needs are and help them make connections if they're needing something. There are also networking events going on in San Antonio that aren't just a webinar type thing. I mean, those are important also, but that provide a networking functionality, whether it's a video chat type thing or small breakout rooms. And those are important to make new connections as well as maintain the ones you already have.
Thank you for that. And yeah, I can attest to some of the events at the Health Cell. They've recently introduced virtual networking. So that's been a nice thing to have to reconnect with folks. What about you, Cory? You're kind of a one-man show, but you seem to, Cory Levenson, done an amazing job of keeping in contact with everyone in the community, even interacting virtually. What have been some of the keys to your success doing that?
Yeah, I mean, as Heather said, I mean, I really haven't had any face-to-face meetings since March, but it's all been through calls like this or just phone calls or, going to health cell events and a lot of emailing and just trying to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, that you keep the momentum going and make sure you stay in touch with people. And if you have important collaborative partners, at Velocity or wherever, that you do have regular interactions and that people, your colleagues know what you're doing. And so, yeah, it's just relying on all these various electronic means at this point. I don't really see any other way to do it. So you just sort of have to make the best of the situation. But it can be done. I mean, obviously, having these kinds of things is suboptimal compared to being able to stand around in a group face-to-face and chatting informally, but it's better than not doing anything. I mean, this is sort of a good time for this pandemic to have happened because we have all these tools and we can stay in touch. So everybody's got Wi-Fi and You know, it's a hardship, obviously, and we wish it were, the circumstances were otherwise, but certainly people can continue to do business and get things done. So just sort of do what you have to do.
Monica, I can add that one thing we've done, and we're starting to get pretty significant use out of, is we've converted our classroom into a virtual conference center, so that people could still attend personally, in person, still maintain, you know, more than 10 feet distance from one another, and then layer in cameras embedded into the Zoom technology to where cameras can videotape you presenting, and then you can Zoom broadcast that. So a virtual conference center in essence. And we invested literally thousands of dollars to put that into place so that we could have a hybrid approach to where people could still meet, socially distance, and still present via Zoom in a more natural setting. And, you know, I've been very surprised on the different entities that have been using that capability more recently. So I think as things kind of shake out, you're going to start seeing these kind of hybrid models.
And Cory Hallam, do you have any insights into that topic?
It depends on what stage you're at with company and activity and other things. I find, if anything, use the current situation as an excuse to call people more. Even for us in growing our business, not underestimating the fact that people outside the area have not heard of us. And people are now more willing to get on a Zoom call quickly and have a discussion versus, you know, the old school mindset of having to meet up at a conference or meet up at some event. In fact, I think we've actually been faster in growing this year because of this. Again, have the need that's there and this ability to quickly get on the phone with someone and move the process forward, where historically it might have taken, you know, a couple of months. We have to wait for some, you know, event that's going on and then meet up at that point. So don't hold back, push forward and try to keep expanding that network.
Well, thank you. We are nearing the end of our session, so I'd like to thank all of the panelists for joining today and dedicating your time to sharing your knowledge to the community. And to the attendees that logged in, thank you for attending the session. I hope that it was helpful for you, whether you're someone that's currently in San Antonio or a newcomer, to learn more about the local institutions that we have that are supporting the bioscience community and how you can help build connections into that ecosystem. So thank you so much, and appreciate your time, and hope you have a great rest of the week. And this recording will be available, I believe, on the San Antonio Startup Week YouTube channel, as well as the Facebook page, if you'd like to view it or share it with your network. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.